Hi everybody, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL. One of my favourite releases from last year was Hafez 1984 from Alexandria Fragrances. Love it. There's a new kid in town, Hafez 1984 Intense, hoping to build on the success of its predecessor. Let's see how it compares. So, I absolutely adore Hafez 1984. I love the tobacco, the patchouli, the rum, the cocoa accord. It's a bestseller for Alexandria Fragrances, it's satisfying to wear, it garners compliments, and it's got a stellar performance. So how does the Intense version compare? Notes are a little bit different, so let's take a look at those. Notes listed are oud, coffee, leather, saffron, jasmine, tonka bean, vanilla and sandalwood. When I first spray this, I definitely pick up on the DNA of the original, but this one is darker, more brooding and slightly more grown up. I describe this as the more sensible older brother to the louder, more playful younger brother that is Hafez 1984. So we've got some coffee and saffron and a bit of oud in this, so those notes are possibly darkening this fragrance up and making it seem a bit more refined. I felt like the original was throwing everything out there, all guns blazing. It was saying, you like tobacco? Here, have loads of tobacco. You like patchouli? Have some patchouli. You don't like those notes? Well, what about some rum? So it was really brash and I loved it for that. This one demands a more intimate relationship, both with the wearer and with people around you that will be smelling this. It's one of those fragrances that, rather than projecting out there to everyone in the room, people will just get little bits of sillage, little hints of what you're wearing, but it will draw people closer and they'll have to come closer into you to really get a sense of this fragrance. So the original is the louder younger brother and Intense is the more grown-up, sultry older brother. I described Hafez 1984, the original, as reminding me of a rum and hot chocolate. So if I'm going to make a similar comparison with this one, I would say it reminds me of a rich, intense, dark Belgian chocolate that has been melted. So the kind of chocolate that you smell when you have a chocolate fondue, or if you've ever melted dark chocolate in a pan and you get that lovely, rich, intense cocoa aroma. This is what this reminds me of. It also reminds me of the smells from the chocolate factories that we used to get here in York. We don't seem to get it as much these days, but a few years ago the chocolate factory used to produce that really rich, intense cocoa smell, and you could walk all around the city and just be bombarded with the smell. It was quite pleasant. So this again reminds me of that. If anyone has ever visited York or lives in York, then you may know what I'm talking about. If not, then if you've ever melted any dark chocolate, then this will just give you a bit of an idea of what's going on in this. As well as getting this lovely dark chocolate accord, there's also some coffee. Now this isn't a milky, sweet coffee. This is intense, high strength black coffee. It's never dominant though, it doesn't ever take over the fragrance. I wouldn't describe this as a coffee scent, it's just a supporting note, as are all the notes really in this. I don't think there's anything in here that really stands above the rest of the notes. It just seems to be one nice, smooth composition, as you tend to find in some fragrances. So I wouldn't describe it as a chocolate fragrance, I wouldn't describe it as a coffee fragrance or an oud fragrance. In fact, in terms of the oud, I'm not really picking out that much oud at all, but just is a little hint in there, adding a little bit of intensity to it. So on first spray, you will be reminded of Hafez 1984, but then after literally a few minutes, it settles down and it becomes its own thing. Those more intense, darker notes come out and it settles down, projection really dials back, and it just becomes a very intimate skin scent. So that leads me on to talking about the projection. So I got pretty much an hour of projection from this, but it's not a wide projection like you get with the original. It's quite a close-in projection, I'd say maybe half an arm's length. As I say, people will have to get closer to you to smell this, so it works for those more intimate situations like date nights, perhaps. And then longevity, it stayed on my skin for a reasonable amount of time, I'd say 7 to 8 hours. I would class the original as a beast mode performer. I got massive projection. In fact, to some degree, it was projecting throughout the whole life of the fragrance, and the life of the fragrance for me would last easily 8 to 10 hours. So the original was definitely beast mode. This is not a beast mode fragrance, definitely more dialed back in terms of its performance, but still really nice. Sometimes you don't want to flood a room with your scent. You want a scent that is just working in a little bit more of a mature and refined manner. It's 100% a unisex fragrance, and I think you could wear this any time of year. You look at the note breakdown and it looks like it would be a solid winter, autumn scent, but because it's not that bold in its performance and projection, you can get away with it in warmer temperatures. In fact, I would say maybe even on a summer's evening, you could get away with wearing this, and a little bit of warmth just may help boost the performance of this one as well. Talking about occasions, for me, this is just the perfect date night scent when you're in close proximity to another person and you know they're going to be in your space and talking to you. They'll be getting a lovely scent, but it's not going to be overpowering. If someone is close to you and you're wearing a really overpowering scent, it just might get a bit annoying, a bit cloying sometimes, but definitely not with this. It is quite sophisticated and sensible. It's rich, it's refined, it's sultry, it's alluring, and it's another nice composition from Alexandria Fragrances. Okay, the big question, which do I prefer? For me, it's got to be still the original. I love the notes in the original, they just really work for me. I love its brashness, I love its versatility. I would give Hafez 1984 a 10 out of 10. It's pretty much a perfect fragrance for me. This one, whilst it's really nice, I would probably reach for it less often, and the notes, again, really nice, but not quite just hitting the sweet spot for me as much as in the original, but still a really lovely fragrance. I will be wearing it, but just not quite as often as the original. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. So that's just my opinion. Not everyone out there likes scents that project quite as widely and as strongly as Hafez 1984. If you like your scents to be a little bit more refined, a little bit more reined in and intimate, good for those close quarter situations and those date nights, then the new intense version could be the one for you. Have you tried it? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you can compare those two fragrances. My opinion is just one opinion, and it is just my opinion, and everyone has different opinions. So if you can compare the two, please leave some comments down below, because if we get the widest range of opinions possible, it helps everyone tuning into this video for a bit of information to better assess whether it's a fragrance that they should buy. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you found it useful, and remember, keep tuning into FM and keep smelling good.